Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not To Comic Book. This media show I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the series premiere of Naomi, a great series premiere. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, I'm going to bring up the fact is that I think I've talked about this before, but I know nothing about this character. This is a character I know absolutely nothing about. From my understanding, at least the way I've heard people talk about her, comic book wise, is that people say that she's a super relatively new character, that she's only been in the comics for maybe in the past 5 years or something like that. So that's interesting. We've been getting quite a few of those. Obviously Hit Monkey's only made a couple appearances on the Marvel front and got his own animated show on Hulu. So I think it's kind of something of a similar vein, but it's a character I know nothing about, and to have such shorter relative history and now having her own show, it's pretty dope. But this episode was really interesting because I feel like it's structured way different. Because obviously a superhero show would tend to lean into immediately jump to the superhero stuff, which this kind of has, but there's a lot of mystery of revolving around it, which I think is going to be interesting because, well, first and foremost, we get introduced to Naomi, learning that she's adopted, especially when she has that thing with the glasses, which is very it's almost that Spider-Man-esque thing of at least Sam Raimi's Spider-Man one of you're wearing glasses and then you're not wearing glasses because you're my vision. And I thought it was interesting because later on her parents justified by being you have a degenerative eye disease, so the glasses help eliminate that a little bit. So I know. I didn't even recognize who her dad was until I saw an opening credits, because as he was on screen, Barry Watson popped up. I was like, wait. I was because I didn't even recognize him in that moment. It's been a while since I've seen him, so I didn't even recognize him. I was like, holy crap. Which is, I was about to go on a tangent, but I won't. But I was like, I didn't know that. The actress who plays her mom, Jennifer, seems familiar too. I just can't place her. I have to look into that. But I was like, Barry Watson, I haven't seen you in a while, bro. That's cool. That's dope. I didn't know he was in this. It's so interesting because I feel like they've done that recently. I mean, obviously, they kind of did with Stargirl with getting Luke Wilson and Amy Smart. It's almost like that thing of having these actors play these older parental parents, for these characters, and just I don't know. I think it's just an interesting thing that I've seen. This is the second show that I'm sure, if you really think about, others have done it, but it's just the second show that's kind of popped up in my mind, along with Stargirl, that's kind of done that similar casting thing in a certain regard. But also finding out she's a big Superman fan, but the way she's talking to Nathan later on when they're at the party and stuff like that is that, he's not real. I'm like, wait. So Superman is still fictitious in this world? No one believes. It's just he's just a comic book thing. So I'm like, I guess he's a myth, which is interesting because Batman was a myth, still considered a myth. I mean, I think it depends on the mythology, because certain mythologies will still lean into the whole aspect of, even when he's been around for a while, Batman's still kind of nah, but people are just saying that it's that's crazy that usually, obviously, that's some year one type of stuff when he's still relatively new enough, but it's still, even in the Arrowverse, when Elseworlds happened and they were the Bat, it's Oliver was no, I was the first vigilante. There's no such thing as Batman. He's not real. It's because it's mainly a Gotham thing. So I'm curious. I mean, so this makes me think that this isn't part of the Arrowverse necessarily, that this is kind of out there in the multiverse. Just like Stargirl is on Earth 2, this is on a different Earth. Especially when they're leaning into because Superman isn't a well-established thing in the Arrowverse of no, it's Superman. Granted, once again, that's also because multiverse got rebooted because of Crisis, but still, you get what I'm saying? Because even before then, Supergirl was an established thing. So, but obviously, Naomi connects with Superman because it's right, we're both adopted. I should also point out, I like that Naomi's nerdy and cool. I mean, I think, nerd is the new type of cool as well. Being nerdy isn't the bad thing it used to be. Nerdy has been a pop cultural cool thing for a while now, but it's she skateboards and she's really friendly with people, which I think is interesting because that ties into a conversation she also had later on when she was, I forgot who she was talking to. It might have been Nathan she was talking to about the fact is that she didn't have a lot of friends because obviously her parents being military people, she's moved around a lot. She's like, she was in Japan for a while. She had a really hard time connecting with people, and that's when she really kind of connected with the Superman character. So I think that's such an interesting element to kind of do of like, because we don't really see that too much of like people fanboying in this universe to some extent, like with established heroes, but like to know like she's latched onto this character, she's found some camaraderie with this character that everyone believes to be fake. She has like the third biggest Superman fan site. It was mainly a place like for people to talk about comics and stuff like that. But then when an incident goes down, which I love that she leaves debate club, I'm like, oh, like you're able to just do that? I'm like, well, to be fair, it's after school, so but still, I'm like, I'm surprised your teacher just let you just like randomly run out. But when the Superman thing was happening, she ended up passing out. And I thought it was pretty dope. She's getting all these eyewitness testimonies. They're like, oh my God. But everyone thinks it was a stunt. No one thinks it was real. So she's in a situation where like, right, she's trying to figure it out. And that's where we get this mystery element of like, right, there's something going on here. No one can explain like what this is. And it's not just a fan thing of why she's dedicated to figuring this out. It's also the element of ever since the Superman thing happened, like she started feeling dizzy the closer she got to the scene and she passed out. She saw Superman flying overhead. And so eventually she compiles all these like footage from all these different people, and she, along with Nathan, who is kind of somewhat an ex, apparently they went out for like 5 dates, but they compile the footage and they see like the Superman thing, because they were like, they're talking about like, oh, he's fighting some blue thing, and it's like, oh, like everyone thinks it's fake, and then they end up running into D, who's immediately there, and then Superman turns to D and is like holding his hand out like, no, don't worry about it, I got this. So you're like, okay, so it seems like D knows who this is. Once again, still knowing like, oh, Superman's like considered fake. I'm like, what world do we live in where like Superman's still considered like not real, that he's just a comic book thing? That's, once again, that's just such an interesting thing, because like he's such a world-renowned hero that I'm like, how do you, once again, it's a different Earth, so like this Earth might like go by different rules or something like that, but I'm like, I'm just so curious how that works and understanding that. But it definitely seems like, because once again, she's trying to piece it together and she knows like, man, I sound a little crazy, but it's like, there's something here. Once again, it's no longer just about a fan thing, it's just about figuring this out. And even Nathan and her and go see D&D's like, oh, Naomi, oh, you wear glasses? And she was like, how you know that? He's like, oh, just whatever. It's like, oh, yeah, that's, oh, your birthday's, come see me when, your birthday comes. It's like, oh, yeah, it's March something, right? And it even says the exact date, and she's like, oh, that's the day I was adopted. How do you know? He's like, oh, you know, social media and stuff like that. I'm like, social media or not, that's still weird for you to know that date off the top of your head, especially because Naomi was like, I know we've never talked, like, much, I mean, ever. That the fact is he would know when you got adopted and everything, and I'm like, that is weird. Really, really weird. But he lies and said like, no, I'm the one behind all of that. Like, because at first I was almost wondering like, can he not lie or something? Because it almost seemed like he was going out of his way to like talk around the truth, because he was like, you're not asking the right questions. And it was like, right, it was me. And it was like, right. So he lied. Because at first I was thinking he couldn't lie, and maybe he was like, very, you know, more recently, like the Wheel of Time, like the Aes Sedai can't lie. They can stretch the truth to some extent, but they can't full outright lie. So I was wondering if he's kind of like got some like curse or something on him, like almost like I'm only saying this because I've like came across it recently, like the Wolf Among Us Telltale game. My lips are sealed, type of thing. I was wondering if there was something of that nature, but it doesn't seem like that's the case, considering he can actually lie. Well, I mean, still could be like he could can't necessarily tell the truth, but maybe he can still lie, but not, he probably can't, maybe it's a thing of he just can't say the very specifics of it. But initially Naomi was going to have to let it go, because it wasn't the resolution her or the audience that she's reaching out to want it, but it's like, it is what it is. But like I said, like the moment she started talking to her parents about it, like, oh yeah, D, like the fact is he knows when I was adopted. Do you think he knew my real parents? It's like, no, like we told you your parents died in a car accident. It's like so far away. Like there's no way D would know. And the fact is they're acting like that. At no point did they go like, oh, like maybe we should check into this. The fact is D knows, like, you know, so. But, like, the fact is they chalk it up to that. But maybe it's just kind of like, well, Naomi is who she is, so, like, she's super friendly with everyone. Everyone's, like, pretty tight-knit with her, so maybe that's all they really kind of allocate that to. Which, really quickly, I think it's interesting how they're setting up potential love square, because, like, Nathan has a thing for Naomi. But it seems like she's also tight with Anthony, who kind of has a thing for her, and then also like Lourdes, and even her dad's like, no, I just want you to make a choice. You know, it's not about who you date; it's just about making a choice. You know, and because she's still in that. He's like, right, if I had my way, I'd lock you in your room and you stay there until you're 80. But it isn't about necessarily who you date. It's just about like you making a choice at the end of the day. It's just a part of life about. And I think that's going to be a very important thing going forward is choices. And I think that actually played into her debate where she was talking about, like, obviously it's the conversation of nature versus nurture. Like, the fact is that she talks about, like, because the person she's debating is about going at it from the genetics angle, how that's the most important thing. And she's like, right, we all wanted a definitive answer, but there kind of isn't one. At the end of the day, we're determined by our choices, you know, those choices we make are what ultimately lead us to or what pave the way for our destiny, essentially. And I think that's going to be a crucial theme for the show I think they're setting up. But when she was there, like, obviously military people came in too, and you're like, she was kind of caught off guard by that. And then, like, the buzzing came back. So I was wondering, like, is it like a super hearing thing? Is she, like, hearing something? Almost like, because we got little tiny, I don't know why I say tiny little hints to her abilities. Like, it seems like she has enhanced vision, which even, because it seems like there might be setting up some parallels between her and Superman, because, like, maybe the buzzing she's hearing, because, like, no one else can hear it, so either it's a thing of she has some super hearing and she's picking that up, or it's just whatever the buzzing is has some connection to her, so only it's set to a frequency only she would be able to hear because they're connected. It might just be a thing of, like, because later on she's talking to Dee about it, but Dee's like, he says go back to the buzzing. So maybe there's some correlation of, like, right, because they're different. Like, what that means we'll get to later, but she had read the note when the military was saying, like, yo, we have this Superman landing or whatever, and she goes and checks out the woods and she finds some disc, and you're like, what the hell is that about? And then Zumbado, who's this kind of like weird dude that she doesn't like because he's someone that he came to a town where military people are, and he kind of tried to sell them cars, which for her, you know, even her, Nathan was like, yeah, it is kind of pretty messed up that you're trying to scam, like, military service people out of their money and stuff like that. So he's kind of, apparently he sells like crappy cars and stuff like that. He seems very menacing, but he knows Naomi's circumstances, and he's like, whatever it is, like, you're either being too ignorant, you're playing dumb, or you're just blissfully unaware of just like the truth, maybe all three. And all of a sudden these leaves start swirling around. I'm like, so do you have like some wind power or something? Because at first I was like, because it seems like maybe his power is like teleportation or something, because we see him like cross behind a tree, and then all of a sudden later on he's like right behind her. But he's like, obviously a theme of this too is don't believe what you think, and I believe that to be like, because Naomi is the type of person I think would probably think a lot and overanalyze things. It's like, right, just kind of, I think that's supposed to almost be like a believe with your own eyes. Don't believe what you're, like, you think like, oh, this must be what it is. Don't believe what you think to be true. Find out for yourself. Trust your instincts. Trust your gut. Because it almost seemed like he's trying to point her in the right direction. But whether he's a bad guy or not, I don't know. Like, he definitely has something going on there. But the fact is that she passed out not only during the Superman thing, but also this whole situation at the, you know, when she was close to the military base when they were doing those. It seems like, okay, so, and I think her parents are keeping a secret from her, because later on she breaks into Zumbado's place. She's got Annabelle's help, Annabelle's boyfriend, which he's kind of a nerd because he's referencing Lord of the Rings, Nathan, and Anthony, who both have beef with each other because, well, Nathan has an issue with Anthony because Anthony is someone that Naomi potentially likes, and he likes Naomi too. But also, like, Anthony's from the position of he's a townie in a military town kind of situation where there's a whole bunch of military families. So, like, the military families kind of have an issue with the townies kind of have issues with the military family too. So You know, and even Naomi's like, well, I'm a military brat as well. And he was like, yeah, but no, you're you. Like, you're different. And it's like, yeah, there's definitely something there. Which I also note, the actor who plays Anthony is like the actor who plays Mason in, I believe that's the same actor, plays Mason in the World Beyond, the Walking Dead World Beyond. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But yeah, I love that they broke into that. I was like, wow, you're just kind of breaking and entering, and I love her justification. It's like, no, we're just kind of sneaking in while he's not here and entering. We won't break anything. So, and I do like that our friend, which the actress who plays Annabelle seems slightly familiar. I just can't place it. Maybe she just reminds me of. There's an actress like just looking in her face. I'm like, oh, you remind me of that. I don't think it's her, but I think they look kind of similar in their faces. But it's interesting. Like I thought it was kind of pretty neat. She's got her own little like squad. So I guess like this squad is like, this is the 6-person squad we're going to be following for the show. So, and the fact is they broke in and she found a newspaper that was correlated to the day she got adopted. Apparently, like it almost seemed like there was like a UFO spaceship thing, and you're like, wait, so is Naomi an alien? Is that what that's about? Like that's why I'm like, wait, is this going to be like, because I didn't know where this stood amongst like the DC stuff. Like I was like, are these going to be like metahumans? Are we dealing with aliens? So is this going to be like another alien show, kind of like Supergirl? I'm wondering, because maybe there's an even deeper connection. Because he was saying like, yeah, do you know why you chose Superman? She's like, because we were both adopted. And it's like, maybe that was kind of inkling like, no, we're all, because he talked about, oh, I was scared coming into my powers too at first. You know, it makes you feel different. In the moment you are different, people look at you differently. But he's like, right, I no longer wanted to be a sheep, you know, one of the sheep. I'm much more, you know, I chose to be a wolf. And I'm like, that's interesting. Like, he definitely seems like, oh, I'm one of those people that's like, now that I have this power, why would I want to be a sheep? I'm going to be a wolf. I'm an alpha. I'm better than human, you know? So I don't think we're dealing with metas. We might, maybe not. We might be dealing with aliens, and she might be from a different planet. And so maybe that's why, like, because it also play into like the whole military thing. Like her parents have to know the truth about her, that she's from a different planet. Like in there might be like some very distinct Superman parallels where he was adopted by the Kents. She was adopted by, which I should also note, I think is interesting. Her last name, I should really quickly mention, is McDuffie. And if I'm not mistaken, and do correct me in the comments down below because I could be wrong, I believe that would be like I don't know if that's like her last name typically in the comics or not. I don't know if that like her family's last name, but or her adopted parents' last name. But like, I wonder is that a reference to Dwayne McDuffie? It's Dwayne, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not well versed in all work he was a part of, but I do believe he was part of Milestone Comics and stuff. Like I think he was a prolific comic guy. I don't know if he was like an artist or writer or maybe both, because I know he had ties to the Ben 10 stuff to some extent. I don't know if I can't remember if he was part of the creative like team like with Man of Action. I don't remember if he was part of that or whether he was kind of just which worked with them with some of the Ben 10 stuff. I don't know if like the original Ben 10, but I want to say Alien Force is what he worked on or was connected, because I remember them paying tribute to him at some point. Because I want to say he passed away back in 2009, and I know like most recently, you know, obviously Milestones Comics has been kind of like, that came up like maybe not this most recent DC fandom, but last DC fandom that information might have came up. It was obviously talked about. They had their own little segment during this most recent DC fandom. So, but I know, like, I think he had ties to that and they brought him up. But I think when I heard the name McDuffie, I was like, that sounds like that might be him if I'm remembering correctly. Once again, I could be wrong. And if I am, do let me know in the comments down below. But I thought that was an interesting moment of her last time. I was like, oh, I was wondering is that what that's supposed to be like a little bit of a tribute and reference to? Because I don't know if Naomi falls under that, like, Milestone Comics, like, Static does and stuff like that. Maybe not. But that's why I was thinking like there's definitely like no parallel. Circling back to it, like her parents definitely know more than they're letting on, and maybe like her spaceship or whatever might be tied to the noise that she's hearing, and that's why it's because she does have super hearing, or maybe it's just resonating with her because it's the reason why it's happening. Like maybe because the blue guy has some connection to her, the person that Superman was fighting. And then maybe at the military base, because that's where her ship is, maybe? I don't know. The fact is that there's this concocted lie about, like, oh, your parents died in a car crash. And like, not less not unless it's supposed to be indicative, because I was like, say not, because it doesn't seem like there was any mention of a car crash or anyone dying, because I was like, say not unless the spaceship crashed and killed her parents, like not unless that is the truth and just omitting certain facts, but I'm assuming that's supposed to be referencing like she's from the, from, outer space, that she's an alien. Luckily they got out of there in time, because sadly they couldn't get anything else, because, Zimbardo showed up, and also like whatever was there was in a safe. It's interesting because, like, well, I mean, you haven't found it anywhere else, so I guess the conclusion would be that it's in a safe, but it almost seemed like she was so certain, like she could almost feel that it was, but, it's just probably like, no, it's the only other place we haven't searched, and it's most likely super important, so, because even D later on didn't seem like he was like, I'm not worried about the disc. Go back to the buzzing. So at one, and he, like I said, he talked about people like us, and then he shows her his wings, because he's like, right, this was not supposed to happen. Like this. And the moment he does that, immediately in my brain, once again, I know I'm super wrong, but immediately in the back of my brain, I'm like, I see wings, I'm like, you're not like supposed to be like a different world version of Hawkman or something, right? I'm like, because, well, being aliens would make sense. I mean, once again, it's determined on like which continuity you go with, because certain continuities, they're aliens. Other continuities, Hawkman and Hawkgirl are they were like cursed, basically. They're Egyptians, and that they were cursed back in the day, and they have well, not necessarily immortality, just that they constantly reincarnate. Like, so either it's a curse, a byproduct of like something from space landing and making them what they are, or they're straight up aliens, which kind of like the Justice League animated series leaned into them being aliens. God, because their planet gets referenced in season 1 of DC's Legends of Tomorrow, but I can't remember its name off the top of my... it's obviously, it's not Themyscira, but it's something almost of that ilk. Like, I can't remember what it's called now. It's been so long. But that's why I mean, they haven't touched the Hulk people in a while. I mean, we know Hawkman's going to be in Black Adam, but at least like TV show wise, they haven't really touched on that. I'm trying to remember Stargirl. I believe the Hulks was Hawkman part of the team in Stargirl? I'm also blanking on like the roster. I'm all over the place. I do apologize, but that's immediately where my mind went. I was like, is that what those are supposed to be? Because they're not feathered wings; those are metallic wings. So I'm like, that's why I'm like, I must be thinking the wrong dude. Like, he's something else. But it's like, right, you're not asking the right questions. And he's like, well, what is the right question? And it's like, who am I? And like, that's the biggest mystery of like who she is, and discovering, why all this is happening now. Because even he was like, right, like this wasn't supposed to happen this soon. I guess they were going to wait till she got a little older, which is kind of interesting, because I think it ties into almost like just comparison to like everything else around her, like DC wise, like, the Flash, like, granted, Barry getting his powers years before he typically was supposed to in the original timeline, that's more of an Eobard, like, interference, but I'm wondering, does something else come up? Like, the fact is, like, this was never meant to happen. Like, what's D's connection? Like, does D know Superman? Because, like, are they, like, fellow aliens just knowing alien heroes that know about each other? Like, does D have ties to the Justice League? Does the Justice League exist here? Like, we know comics exist, but, like, whether superheroes exist in this continuity, I'm curious to see, like, because I didn't talk about it, like, I forgot, like, it isn't just Batman being a legend, because even during Crisis, even Jeff was like, wait, Superman's real? So it kind of implies, like, right, there are places where it seems like Superman is still like a myth. He isn't, once again, maybe on some planets he's more of a well-known hero, like a worldwide hero, like, considering all that he does. But I don't know, like, the fact is he's still allocated to that myth ethos in certain regards. I think it's kind of interesting. You wouldn't think he'd ever be allocated. Batman, because he's in the shadows, it makes sense, but I guess because Superman's so fast, like, you just wouldn't believe it. Like, sometimes, I guess the Flash could kind of fall into that category sometimes if he wasn't just, such a well-documented thing, at least on his Earth, at least, on Earth 1. Since, regardless, I'm going on a whole tangent and stuff like that, but like I said, a really interesting start to the series, kind of giving us this neat kind of mystery to kind of start off with. A lot of questions, and I'm always interested in, like, kind of, figuring things out and getting the pieces to the puzzle, but I'm excited to see where this goes. Like I said, I think this is kind of a nice introduction. I feel like it's very different from how most superhero shows that we've seen is, have started. You know, not a criticism or anything of how any other like superhero show has started, but this like it kind of almost has that Legion-esque element to it to me, where like Legion has like there's so many questions. Like Legion's like the only other superhero show I feel like, because everything else kind of like once again it's kind of got the superhero start to it. Like I'd say Stargirl probably has like some questions you have like at the beginning, but everything else is just kind of like now we're kind of in it type of thing. So you know, but regardless, I'm excited to continue watching. I'm excited to see where the next episode takes us with all of this. But really, that's all I want to talk about. To the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.